Well, joining us from Ashkelon near the Gaza border is TalkTV's war correspondent, Tom Mutch. Tom, thanks for joining us this morning. The ground invasion started over the weekend. What can you tell us about the latest?
So apparently what the Israelis have been trying to do is they're trying to encircle as many Hamas fighters as they can in Beit Hanun, which is sort of part of the Gaza City urban area. It's the part closest to the border. Now, I was there last night, or in the city of Sderot, very, very close to that, probably about 1,000 meters away. And you can be there and you can literally just walk out and you can see the constant fighting. You can hear small arms fire, you can hear tank fire, you can even see explosions from airstrikes and artillery strikes. However, Hamas is still fighting back. They still clearly have combat capability. I mean, we saw that because we actually could see a rocket barrage that came straight towards us. Now, we have the Iron Dome intercepting system, which was able to take out those rockets before they reached us, but it was still pretty scary to see. We had to all run for cover as they were exploded and intercepted probably just a couple of hundred meters in the air above us.
Tom, thank you for joining us this morning. So much I want to ask you about. You're there in Israel. We see this horror unfolding. We've talked incessantly and quite rightly about the terrorist cell that is Hamas and how it needs to be eradicated. But concern amongst Israelis about escalation, not only on the streets in countries across the world, but there. Is there total support for what's happening? Is there an understanding about perhaps the humanitarian disaster that's unfolding? Is there confidence behind Netanyahu, is what I'm trying to ask you?
Sure. Well, I do want to say, to start with your last question first, there is very, very little confidence in Netanyahu. Even among people who fully support a ground invasion of Gaza, who fully support the bombing campaign, he and his generals and the heads of the IDF and intelligence services are being widely condemned throughout the country for their failure to anticipate this attack, for their failure to properly respond to it, and for their failure to take accountability. So everyone I've spoken to from all sides of the political spectrum says that at some point after this, he's going to have to go. Now, I think up until, to be honest, fairly recently, Israelis were very supportive of the bombing campaign. However, as that death toll has started to escalate, I am hearing more and more people say, is it going to be worth it? Is a ground invasion actually going to be able to get rid of Hamas and bring some sort of peace or stability to the region? And also I think people are starting to become aware that international reactions are turning, I would say almost fairly decisively against Israel, just because the bombing campaign has become so bloody in recent days.
And Tom, can I ask what the response is over there? What's the feeling on the ground about Israel's attempts to retrieve hostages? We understand that the families of those who have been taken hostage met with Netanyahu only this weekend, up to 3 weeks after those initial terrorist attacks. What's the feeling over there regarding hostages?
To be honest, most of the families of the hostages are reported to be fairly furious about how the government's dealt with it. I mean, when President Biden was here a couple of weeks ago, he met with families of hostages well before Netanyahu ever bothered to. So families of hostages feel that they are very, very low in the government's political priorities at the moment. And I think there is a really genuine sense in Israeli society that the needs of the hostages and their potential welfare is not being taken seriously enough.
Tom, it's quite interesting. I really appreciate you joining us. I think that anybody who's broadcasting this story would perhaps say what I'm about to say to you. It's an incredibly difficult job to do. We can only be factually based. I think that's the only way we can do it. There isn't anybody in the world that wouldn't have seen what happened 3 weeks ago as the most horrendous genocidal attack. And I understand that the desire to revenge, retribution, whatever, certainly to take Hamas out. But what's ensuing is both difficult, is both awful, and as you quite rightly say, the world will watch, it will support as much as it can, but it's governing so much of our everyday lives, and you just have to think for all the people in that region. Tom, really good to have you on live there in Israel. Tom Mutch, TalkTV's war correspondent.